I just really liked the idea of being able to use your skills, your knowledge to kind of help others in their most vulnerable times. In India, I kind of saw how different my experience was, like going to get pads was kind of, it felt very clandestine the way that they would wrap up the pads in a black bag and give it to you. And Project Stree, like you said, it's a nonprofit organization based in Gujarat, which is where my family is from in India. And we essentially tackle period poverty and the menstrual stigma.
Namaste. Welcome to the Inspired Series, a podcast hosted by BAPS Better Living, where we share stories of remarkable individuals whose purpose has been rooted in strength, growth, and spirituality. Today, we have the pleasure of having Ria Soni on our podcast. She's the co-founder of Project Stree, a nonprofit organization that tackles the stigma of menstruation and maternal health. So Ria, I'm so excited to get to know you today. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Welcome. So Ria, tell me a little bit about your journey in medicine. What inspired you to pursue it?
I think I first became interested in the medical fields probably back in high school. I had, like most people interested in medicine, I had done a little bit of shadowing. And I don't know, I just really liked the idea of being able to use your skills, your knowledge to kind of help others in their most vulnerable times when they're most sick, and seeing that, I knew that that was something that I wanted to be able to take on. And I was also interested in biology and the sciences, and so be able to kind of combine those two, I thought was the perfect career.
I love that. And the skills and values that brought you to this journey and brought you to medical school and even becoming a doctor, where did that come from? Is that something that you learned growing up, something that you learned from your parents?
I think, like many Indian Americans, my parents immigrated from India, from Gujarat in the late 90s. And so I think as immigrants, they had the kind of values of grit, hard work, determination. So I think that was something that they really imbibed in me and my sister from a really young age, and kind of integrity and being honest. And at the same time, our parents would take me and my sister to our local Hindu temple or mandir, which is a place of worship. And kind of growing up and going to the youth classes there, meeting other people. I think those values were also instilled within me, learning about, again, I think that's kind of where this idea of really helping others, going out of your way to help others, was something that was introduced to me.
I love that. And you said you have this sense of community when you're at the mandir, which is our place of worship, right? So can you tell me, like, what's the earliest memory you have at the mandir in which you were introduced to this concept of seva, or a service-oriented life?
Yeah, one of the things I remember is we were encouraged to serve others, to help others, regardless of our age or capabilities, even as, 5, 6, 7 year olds. I remember vividly, after the assembly was over and everyone would be eating dinner, we would all go and kind of put on our aprons and help collect the trash after people were eating, or help hand out plates for the food. And it was something so small, but I think you kind of felt like you were a part of something. You felt that you were giving back, and you kind of made a difference. And so that was kind of probably the most vivid memories I had when I was younger. And then kind of growing up, we kind of took on more and more opportunities. So when I was in around high school, early high school, one kind of seva or service I took on was mentoring other young girls in like our weekly youth sessions, and kind of doing presentations and things like that. And that was I think even more special because you have these girls at a very young age, very impressionable, and kind of being able to pass on the values I learned, I think was really incredible.
Yeah, and you talk about seva, which is a very service-oriented mindset. So tell me a little bit about how seva influenced the way you practice medicine. Because if you think about it, it kind of goes hand in hand, right? People that are in the medical profession or the healthcare profession, they already have service kind of rooted into their values and their purpose, and that's why they may be practicing medicine. So, how do you think seva influence the way you practice or see medicine?
Yeah, I think so. I think kind of the philosophy of medicine almost embodies the concept of seva, that we learn growing up. Um, we're taught to treat others regardless of their background, regardless of what we get in return. And kind of really, I think what I think of is selfless service. That specific type of service is really what medicine is. And I think kind of growing up with this idea of service going through the mandir, it almost felt like, okay, this is like the natural career for me because I can continue doing that on a more grander scale with something I was passionate about science and medicine. And I think they're kind of almost synonymous to me.
Yeah, and I can totally see you present yourself differently to patients or with other colleagues, right? Because your purpose is rooted in seva and you have this service oriented mindset, right? So you show up differently to your patients, you show up differently to your colleagues, right? So I can see that seva has definitely influenced the way your journey to medicine. So how do you think seva influenced you as a resident now? Because it's a little different. You had your bachelor's, you went through medical school, and now in residency. Does seva look a little different to you now than it did before?
Um, I think the way I think of it is kind of twofold. And how can we obviously serve our patients? What are the things that we can do for them? But also, we're all, my co-residents and I are all kind of going through this together. So how can we support each other? And so going back to my patients, I think going beyond just the bare minimum of checking in on them, doing my physical exam, asking the questions, giving them medications, but also kind of reading in between the lines and seeing what is it that they actually need, whether it's going and taking them out for a walk because they've been in this hospital bed for days, or if they're about to go home and be discharged, helping them set up like the online charting for them so they can access it. Like little things like that, I think is maybe what helps me go above and beyond. And then again, for working with my co-residents, I think just being able to kind of check in on them, support them, seeing, are there tasks I can offload for them? And yeah, and I think again, I think probably all people in medicine have this natural inclination towards helping others. But I think for me, it's kind of something that just kind of felt innate, and it's great that I'm able to continue doing that in my career.
I love that you get to practice that every single day in your
Mhm.
journey of medicine. So I'm going to backtrack a little bit here. You went the extra mile when you and your co founder started this nonprofit organization called Project Stree. So tell me a little bit more about that. How did you guys start? Where did this idea come from? And what inspired you to pursue this?
hmm Yeah, so Project Stree, like you said, it's a nonprofit organization based in Gujarat, which is where my family is from in India. And we essentially tackle period poverty and the menstrual stigma through educational workshops and providing materials. And the way it kind of started, so my co-founder Juhi and I, we both kind of individually had our own experiences. Of kind of the menstrual stigma. It's the stigma around women's health in India. She grew up going to school there, and I would often travel with my family. And when I would be on my period in India, I kind of saw how different my experience was. Like going to get pads was kind of it felt very clandestine the way that they would wrap up the pads in a black bag and give it to you. And I remember my mom and my grandmother would tell us about how some of the kids would end up staying home from school because they felt they like felt ashamed of being on their period at school. And so I think that hearing stories like that and kind of seeing them really, I think, struck a chord in me where I was like, this is wrong. Like, regardless of, what your beliefs are, this shouldn't be happening. And Judy had similar sentiments as well. And so we kind of came together and started talking about how, there was something that we wanted to do to be able to kind of, somewhat make a difference. So we kind of started getting in touch with our contacts, people that we knew, people that worked at schools, and wanted to kind of do some research and figure out, what is the issue, what's actually happening. And then when we went to India, we ended up finding a school that was interested in having us kind of just go and talk about what menstruation is, women's health, and distribute period products. And we thought that, okay, this would be kind of like a one-time thing. Hopefully it goes well. And it ended up going very well. And the principal of the school had spoken to her other colleagues. And we had a lot of schools reaching out to us saying that, oh, they wanted us to come and kind of, do the same thing. And so it was really awesome to see that response. And even though Julie and I had lived in the U.S. at the time, my cousin, who was born and brought up essentially in the era where we did the workshops, had come to our first workshop and was really interested in what we were doing. And so she essentially became like our workshop coordinator. And the rest is, history. She's been kind of conducting these workshops over the past 5 years within Gujarat across different rural areas, and now even in Ahmedabad in the major metropolitan area.
That is truly remarkable. The fact that you and your co-founder both had different experiences, but you still had this vision of tackling the stigma of menstrual health in a community where we don't really talk about it. And the fact that this Project Stree is active and it's been around for 5 years now? And both you and Juhi are here in the United States, and this nonprofit organization is kind of based in India. So how does the logistics work?
Yeah, we have a big team now. So it was initially just me and my co-founder Juhi, and then my cousin Shivani, who got involved. But now we have kind of a whole swath of volunteers from Gujarat that are again kind of part of the community and are interested in health, women's health, and wanted to kind of get involved. And then we have some team members here in the U.S. as well that are Indian Americans, or kind of are women that are passionate about this issue and kind of help with the behind the scenes. And so I think we've been lucky that given the logistics can be challenging, Juhi has been able to travel multiple times to India to kind of check in on the workshops and conduct them herself. So I think so far it's been working.
I am blown away by the fact that you two young girls have had such a big impact in a community, and you've continued to just keep growing in the last 5 years. And you're so young and you've accomplished so much. And I'm so proud of you for that. So obviously, as you mentioned, this nonprofit organization started 5 years ago, and it must not have been easy, right? Because you're young, you have a lot of energy, you're doing all the logistics from here. And not only are you dedicating your time to this nonprofit, but you also have a life. You have seva, you have your Sunday, Monday days. You also were an undergrad at the time, and now med school, and now residency. Like, how are you balancing it all?
This is something that Julie and I like reflect on a lot. I think if you're doing something that you're genuinely passionate about, that you're interested in, it almost kind of comes, you like naturally end up making time for it. And I think for me, the main thing is just prioritizing, what it is that I value, what it is that I actually want to get done. Like whether it's in evenings, on weekends, kind of in between classes, doing work here and there. So yeah, I think so far, I think for me, I would say the answer is probably just being passionate about it. You're going to make the time.
Yeah, and you mentioned that you grew up at the Mandira and you had found a community there and like-minded individuals who continuously inspired you to grow in ways that you couldn't even imagine, right? So, do you feel like the Mandir or the community that you were in impacted the way you led Project
Yeah, for
Stree?
sure. I think one of the things that was probably really influential for both Julia and I when it came to starting Project Stree and kind of what got us interested in like this space in the first place was hearing about our Guru Pramukh Swami Maharaj and kind of all the work that the humanitarian work that he did for his communities in India. And one specific example that really sticks out to me was during the Bhuj earthquake in the early 2000s. We actually had our extended family members that were impacted by the earthquake. And I remember my parents would kind of tell me about the specific role that Pramukh Swami Maharaj played in really going into the community itself and helping out not only people but the animals and kind of the compassionate nature that he had. And one story that really kind of sticks out to me is when they were kind of preparing packages for to give to the people that were that the victims that were impacted. He really thought about all the specific things that they would need, that they would use, the kind of food that they would want. You know, people have different spice tolerances, so let's make sure we take that into account. I think just the level of detail that he paid attention to, I think is really inspiring to me and kind of influenced, you know, how we think about our work at Project Stree and our workshops and, you know, being really intentional about what we're doing. And I think, yeah, that's probably the biggest source of inspiration.
These topics that a little bit that these topics that are a little bit uncomfortable to talk about, you're making it you're making it comfortable. You're making sure that the individuals that are attending these workshops actually understand what you're saying, and you're educating them and empowering them with this information. And it's almost as if, you know, the care is in the small details that you and Juhi have provided for them. So that is truly remarkable, and it's so powerful that you got to do that.
Yeah, and before we start every one of our Projects 3 workshops, we always kind of, you know, start by asking them, like, how much do they know about periods? Do they know anything at all? You know, why do we get our periods? And that kind of gives us a baseline about, okay, what is it that they care about? What do they value? I remember during one of our workshops, we realized that, you know, a lot of girls may kind of feel shy when it comes to talking about periods. They may think, oh, why are we learning about this? But one of the things that we realized that they do actually care about and value is pregnancy and giving birth and bringing new life into the world. And so in those workshops, we ended up kind of connecting everything to that, to pregnancy, and using that as a base because we knew it would be something that they would instantly become interested in.
Since it's been growing for the last 5 years, and you know that it's going to continue to grow, where do you see Project Stree going in the next five?
A lot of, unlike here in the US, where we kind of have an embedded health class curriculum where we learn about a lot of these things, many of the schools in Gujarat don't have that currently. And so right now we're kind of just asking schools for permission and doing a few workshops, you know, at the schools. But I think our hope is to be able to create some kind of embedded curriculum across Gujarat, whether it's us doing these workshops or another similar organization. I think at the end of the day is the question is how can we systematically create this change and introduce the concept of menstrual health broadly early on. And again, something that we're still working on. And hopefully within the next 5 to 10 years, it can become a reality. I think that would be awesome.
Yeah. And if there's one message you would want women in India to hear or to imbibe, what would it be?
I think for them to feel empowered to kind of take charge of their own health, of their own bodily functions, and, you know, not feel ashamed or shy of kind of what is natural. To kind of, you know, I hope that they can accept their body and their functions for what it truly is, which I think is a gift from a gift of nature, really.
So, Ria, before we go into a before we go into a lightning round that I have for you, is there anything else you would like to share with our listeners?
I mean, I think for me, I realized how important service is, and I just hope others are able to kind of think about it a little bit more and think about how they can incorporate it into their own lives a little bit.
At the end of the day, it is about service, and we should try hard to live a service oriented lifestyle. So, thank you so much for sharing that. Okay, so I have a fun lightning round for you. Are you ready? Great. So, what is one quote that you live by?
But a quote by my Guru Pramukh Swami Maharaj, "In the joy of others lies their own." I think in medicine and even in service-oriented world like Project Stree, I think it's key. It's something that you have to really live by.
What is one book that shaped you?
Say When Breath Becomes Air by Paul Kalinithi. It's about a neurosurgeon that ends up developing cancer, and it's just about kind of life and death. And I think for anyone going into medicine or adjacent fields, it's an important book to read.
You have this rigorous schedule going on with leadership, with residency, with seva. What is one thing that you do to reset yourself or ground yourself during this time?
I would say a good workout. I feel like just getting in the sweat just really helps you get back into the zone.
When you were doing Project Stree, was there ever a moment that you would never forget?
Probably going and doing our first workshop in that winter of 2019 going into 2020, and really seeing the direct impacts of our work and seeing the responses firsthand of what they what we were doing. One of the questions that I asked them is, oh, like, why is it that you get your period? And one of the girls answered literally, it's like, oh, from eating spicy foods. And it's felt like, oh, so such a like silly answer, but kind of goes to show how much of a lack there is of this education, and how necessary this kind of work is.
And with the work that you're doing, you're educating, not just this generation, but the future generations to come, right? Because when you empower someone with education, they don't it doesn't just improve their lives, but they're going to carry that on to their families. And you're creating this what seems like a small effect now or small impact now, but it's actually a bigger impact in the long run. Okay, Ria, one last thing. What is one thing that brings you joy right now?
Finally, after going through many years of schooling, studying, I think finally being able to work as a physician, have my own patients, and kind of just spending time with them. I think it's super rewarding, especially when patients really appreciate the little things that you do.
Appreciate the little things that you do. I really like that, and I hope that everyone that's listening in today can really appreciate the little things that is going on in their lives. And I and Ria, thank you for joining us today. And to all our listeners, this is Ria's journey. Reminds us that no matter where we are in life, whether we're students, professionals, or parents, we can all choose to live a life with service at the center. Her commitment to seva shows that when we lift others, we rise too. Thank you, Ria, for sharing your story and for inspiring us to blend our purpose with action. And to our listeners, may we each find ways, big or small, to make someone else's life brighter just a little bit today. Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you.